Insular, but there's some interesting feeling of power behind that because everyone's watching us like caged animals, and we can dance and, we're in our little safe zone. But at the same time, it feels very special to be seeing a live audience again.
And with that, we came to the end of our show today. I want to thank you for hanging out with me. My name is Jackson Bunganyi. For more entertainment news, remember to check us out at voanews.com. We're also on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube, where you can watch our videos. Remember to like and subscribe. Until next time.
Someday, tranquility will settle upon Borno State in northeast Nigeria. The ordinary rhythms of life in the rural areas will return, as will the everyday bustle of the city. But for now, a restless tension lurks beneath the surface. Not a moment goes by without the threat of violence. Without the fear that the militant Islamic group Boko Haram might unleash an attack. A grim reminder of a conflict still to be resolved. A country's struggle with extremism. An unfinished journey from evil. Yet there are Nigerians who've stood up to the terror, who've shown the courage to fight back, the determination to go forward, and the resilience to forge a new future for their nation. Each morning in the town of Chibok, Rebecca Solomon goes about her chores. But what may appear a simple life became for her a nightmare that began on April 14th, 2014. That evening, Rebecca's daughter, Deborah, was staying overnight in a government school dormitory preparing to take exams the next day. The exams never took place. Deborah is one of the kidnapped Chibok girls believed to be held in a remote forest hideout. It's been 1,000 days since Rebecca has seen her daughter. Deborah's abduction, along with over 200 other girls, exposed to the world Boko Haram's ruthlessness, as well as the dysfunction of Nigeria's government and military, and it stirred many Nigerians to take action on their own. Buki Shonibare had planned a career as a human resources consultant in Abuja, Nigeria's capital.
But then 2014, April 14 happened, and that just opened me up to another life entirely.
Buki became a frontline campaigner for the Bring Back Our Girls movement.
Last night I could not sleep, and for once I felt what it meant for those girls to be out there. And then we came out to stand in solidarity with these girls, and then we are being blocked off. Nothing will stop us. We will keep coming out until our girls return.
What do
Aided by social media, the Bring Back Our Girls campaign sparked worldwide condemnation of Boko Haram.
Our girls! Bring back our girls! Bring back our girls! Bring back our girls!
Like millions of people across the globe, my husband and I are outraged and heartbroken over the kidnapping of more than 200 Nigerian girls from their school dormitory in the middle of the night.
Boko Haram's leader, Abubakar Shekau, capitalized on the group's sudden notoriety, threatening to convert the girls to Islam, marry them off to his commanders, or sell them into slavery. For Buki, it was personal.
It's simply because I was once that girl. Even though I've not been abducted before, but I know what it means to be sexually molested. I know what it means to have to do something because you want to stay alive.
With the international community watching, the Nigerian government issued promises to save the girls. But the lack of swift action angered parents.
If the government cannot take action, we are asking for the United Nations to come in and help us. Or if the United Nations reject us, we just don't know what to do.
Within 2 weeks of the Chibok kidnappings, Buki had made up her mind to stay on the front lines and keep protesting until the girls came home.
And we were screaming like 15 whole days. Some parents have not seen their children. 15 whole days. Where are they? And then we had to commemorate 30 days. And we could not live with that reality.
In truth, the reality was worse. Buki had no idea at the time, but the 30 days would eventually stretch into more than 3 years. Nigeria. Rich in oil and natural gas. A nation seeking to present itself as the image of modern Africa. But a country that is far from united.
180 million people plus 250 ethnic groups, thereabouts. This is a difficult country to govern at the best of times.
Splitting the north from the oil-rich south are cultural and economic fault lines that date far back to Nigeria's colonial past. In the predominantly rural and traditionally Muslim northeast, that fault line is fragile. Although Nigeria collects billions of dollars selling its oil each year, more than 60% of Nigerians live in poverty, many on less than $2 a day. In the Northeast, the poverty rate is even higher.
We're speaking about Northeastern Nigeria, that is really one of the most impoverished and marginalized regions of the country. This is a region that had one of the lowest literacy rates in the country, one of the highest infant mortality rates in Nigeria. So the nature of governance was really poor to begin with, and people were frustrated and seeing the growing levels of inequality in this community.
Poverty and inequality, along with neglect by those with political power, helped sow a rebellious brand of Islam in the Northeast. Its leaders took as their model one of the world's most brutal and dogmatic Islamist movements.
It was at that time in 2003 that there was a community of individuals that moved to the borderlands of Nigeria and Niger in an attempt to create a purist Islamic society based on the model of the Taliban in Afghanistan.
Originally, the group was peaceful and its message inclusive.
What they preached was, we have an alternative system. If the system you believe in does not value you and leaves you out, we will not do that. We are more inclusive, we will take care of you, we are doing Allah's will, and we will define our own society, an alternative society that is just and good. So that was very appealing, especially for people who felt left out.
But eventually, this alternative society split. The leader of its dominant faction wanted a pure form of Islam and an outright insurrection against the government. His name, Muhammad Yusuf. Yusuf was intelligent and charismatic, but bent on confrontation. People began calling his movement Boko Haram, literally Western education is forbidden. Although the group disavowed the name, and still does, it captured Yusuf's essential beliefs. He preached that Western values were undermining Islam, and he called for a holy war.
It's difficult for the West to understand jihad, in part because our modern societies are by their very nature essentially secular. We've come to terms that religion is not a reasonable pathway to organize modern society. Whereas those who are pushing for jihad are saying that religion is the correct way to shape a righteous Muslim society, a land of faithful Muslims. So invariably, those two positions are going to be extremely difficult to reconcile.
Yusuf's base was the northeastern city of Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State. As his sermons became more militant, tensions with local authorities grew. Then, in 2009, Boko Haram exploded into Nigeria's wider consciousness. That June, police clashed with some of Yusuf's followers on their way to a funeral, wounding more than a dozen.
Kuma waɗannan mahaukatan sojojin in ba ɗauke su a cikin gari ba za a zauna lafiya ba.
Yusuf denounced the government actions, and a few weeks later, his followers struck back. With guns and grenades, they attacked police stations in several cities, with the heaviest assault in Maiduguri. Over 4 days of fighting, the police response was merciless. They rounded up Boko Haram suspects, killing them in the street. They destroyed Yusuf's mosque. Then they captured him and took him for interrogation. Hours later, his body was in the street. He'd been shot multiple times.
And he became a martyrdom figure to Boko Haram. And since 2009 until today, all factions of Boko Haram consider him their inspiration.
More than 1,000 people died in 4 days of fighting that July. Afterward, Boko Haram disappeared. But when they returned a year later, it was with more weapons and a new leader. A bombastic and violent Yusuf deputy, Abubakar Shekau. He proclaimed all-out war.
Their argument is a very simple one. You've come up after us. You've killed many of us. You've killed us literally by the thousands. You feel you've decimated our community. We will fight back. Now we will take jihad to you.
Over the next 4 years, Boko Haram put the Nigerian military and civilian security forces on their heels.
Within that period, the militancy and the insurgency of Boko Haram grew stronger and stronger, and it's in this context that Boko Haram was able to acquire land, acquire territory, with limited Nigerian response.
Boko Haram expanded its domain, but Maiduguri remained ground zero. The city of more than 500,000 had a teaching hospital and a university.
Before the insurgency, Maiduguri was a very quiet, peaceful town.
Fati Abubakar was a nursing student living with her family in Maiduguri at the time Boko Haram began its assault in 2010.
We were known for being very traditional, conservative people, and we all knew our neighbors. It was a very diverse community before Boko Haram.
Within months, Fati became a witness to the wholesale destruction of her hometown.
I watched everything happen, from the tension, the bomb blast, the dead bodies on the streets, the houses burning. Sometimes our house would shake because of a bomb blast.
People soon fled. Fati and her family left in late 2012.
At the time, they were killing boys and kidnapping girls, so my parents were not comfortable with that. And then we moved to Abuja, and I lived there for 6 months before I went to London to study.
Fatty completed her studies in London, writing a dissertation about the effects of war on the psychological health of refugees. And she found an outlet to help her cope with the loss she felt as a refugee herself.
I really took up photography around that time that I was struggling with all that was happening around Maiduguri, and I was really interested in how you can do visual storytelling and still have an impact on the community.
Fatty returned to Maiduguri in 2015.
But when I came back, people had become desensitized. You know, it was like a transformation. They didn't even feel any of it. They just kept going. So that was what, had my attention.
Fatty imagined another side of the place she called home, a humane side she wanted to show the world. It was the opposite of the images of war and destruction flooding the global news, and from the deluded propaganda of Boko Haram. In its videos, Boko Haram's leader, Shekau, glorified the group's violence in the name of Islam. But hidden inside his secretive caliphate, the reality was starkly different. Boko Haram brutalized fellow Muslims, beating and killing them at will to maintain control and religious piety. Graphic evidence of the group's conduct surfaced in 2016 when Voice of America journalists obtained and authenticated some 18 hours of videos shot by Boko Haram's own photographers. The raw footage is an unflinching record exposing how one of the world's deadliest extremist movements operates behind the scenes. A daily diary of terror. At public tribunals designed to enforce authority by intimidation and fear, villagers were herded together for displays of discipline. For small sins, offenders were flogged, sometimes by their peers. But for offenses like selling drugs, the punishment was ultimate. No pleading for the accused. Just a bullet in the heart or the head.
When Boko Haram first became violent, the attacks were mostly on the Nigerian state itself. So government offices, prisons, police headquarters. As time went on, and it seems that Boko Haram felt more and more aggrieved, its targets widened and widened, until now it seems to be anybody.
In their encampments, Boko Haram soldiers, many mere boys, trained for warfare and played like children.
The media characterizes Boko Haram as madmen, as crazy, as psychopaths. But what we can see in the footage of the foot soldiers is that in many respects, they go around their daily business just like kids in any other part of the world. We also see them receiving pep talks before battle, where they're told some of you are going to die and some soldiers are going to die. The difference is the soldiers aren't going to go to paradise and you are. And this goes to show that ideology plays a very important part of motivating them to engage in acts of killing. And after a period of time, these young boys become regular Boko Haram fighters willing to sacrifice their lives for the broader mission of the commanders to establish some form of Islamic governance.
It's impossible to know how many Nigerian boys have been conscripted into Boko Haram. Likely, it's several thousand. The penalty for refusal is severe. Danladi was abducted when he was 12, but found a way out later. Shown the Boko Haram video footage, he recognized some commanders and recounted how boys were forced to fight.
su yanka kan wannan su ajiye wani a kan gadon bayan shi wani a ƙirji wani sun yanka shi har su buɗe ƙirjin shi su cire zuciyan shi haka da sun surata mu suka ce mu kara mu kwashi bindigogi.
Shekau made clear that Boko Haram would cleanse Nigeria of anyone who didn't submit to its brand of Islam. Men or women, young or old, Christian or Muslim.
The Shekau faction of Boko Haram has a belief system whereby any Muslim that does not join their group is an apostate because they are fighting a legitimate jihad. And therefore, the idea that a Muslim would get killed in a Boko Haram attack, either because they're targeted or because it's collateral damage, is really not something that the Shekau faction worries about, because their penalty for not joining the group and being apostates is death anyway.
2015 marked a shift in the war. The Nigerian army, aided by military from neighboring Chad, Cameroon, and Niger, began reclaiming towns and territories once under Boko Haram's control. The momentum quickened under a new president, Muhammadu Buhari, elected that year. But the government's success also brought disturbing allegations of human rights abuses, excesses by the military and civilian vigilantes in their zeal to defeat Boko Haram. Amnesty International cited thousands of summary executions, arbitrary arrests, and instances of torture by Nigerian forces, war crimes the group said went unpunished.
The Nigerian government somehow have some doubts in what Amnesty is doing, but all the same, they have come clean and set up a presidential task force, and you have to take into account the composition of members of the panel. They are not people that could be manipulated, they can be manipulated, and they are judges of repute, and we wait and see the results.
As the government ramped up its pursuit of Boko Haram, Abubakar Shekau changed his strategy too. Boko Haram officially aligned with the Islamic State, or ISIS, the jihadi group waging war in Iraq and Syria.
Shekau in 2015 formally pledged allegiance to ISIS, and ISIS responded to this. Some see this as because this coincided with the time when Boko Haram was coming under increasing pressure from the Nigerian military. It was being pushed back. After this, you had the Pledge of Allegiance to ISIS. So it's read as actually this is something of a desperate move on the part of Boko Haram.
Boko Haram could claim affiliation with the largest jihadi group in the world. It began using Islamic State templates in its social media postings, but it was an insurgency on the run. At least 3 times the Nigerian military claimed Shekau had been killed, yet each time he survived, reappearing like a ghost in new videos, recorded in a remote hideout somewhere deep in the northeast bush. The Sambisa Forest, a thick jumble of thorny scrub and scattered trees spread across 5 northern states. A portion was set aside as a game reserve, but its once abundant wildlife has been depleted by war. Now parts of the Sambisa are Boko Haram's sanctuary, a vast area of danger for anyone who dares enter. In a village nearby, Aisha Bakari Gombi lives with her family.
Wallahi uku ne ban sha biyar ba.
In her part-time job as a seamstress, she works with hands and feet in creative concentration, at peace, away from the violence that prowls in the countryside. But the rhythm of the sewing machine is only one facet of her world. Aisha knows the Sambisa well. It was there, as a young girl, that she was initiated in a long-standing family tradition.
Iyayena mafarauta ne, su ma iyayen nawa iyayensu ma mafarauta ne. Ni kuma ba na so al'adarmu na gargajiya ya bace ni ma shine dalilin da yasa nake.
Boko Haram raided her village 3 times before the Nigerian government allowed people to fight back on their own. Now, instead of hunting antelope, baboons, and birds, Aisha goes after a different prey: Boko Haram militants. She is part of a group of hunters who go out in search of insurgents, ready to fight if the situation arises.
Gaskiya Boko Haram dai ba mutum bane. To Boko Haram ne ya isa zai kama mutum da ransa, ya kama shi ya yanka shi da zarton da ake yanka katako. Boko Haram zai kama mace da ciki, ya yanka ta, ya fidda da a cikin cikinta, ya jefar da shi. Boko Haram zai kama yaro jinjiri, ya karya wuyansa ya jefar, ya kama yara ƙanana ya murda wuya ya jefa a kogi.
At the start of their patrol, the hunters take part in spiritual rituals. They believe it will protect against enemy bullets and other dangers in the forest.
Akwai abubuwa irin namu na gargajiya waɗanda muke amfani da su. Wani muna amfani da shi don mu sha, wani mu shafa, wani mu sheƙa, wani mu yi hayaƙi, har ma wanka akwai. To mukan yi su ne kafin mu fita. To ai dajin dama shi muka riga muka saba. Babu wani abun da mu yake ba mu tsoro a cikin daji. Duk lokacin da muka shirya in za mu fita, ko dare ko rana ne shiganta muke yi babu fargaba.
Aisha and her team not only search for insurgents, they're also on the lookout for captives fleeing from Boko Haram camps. Their stories can be heartbreaking.
Akwai matar da muka bari yanzu haka tana kam namu mu a inda muka yi sansani mu a cikin garin Lasa. Suka zo sace ta, suka sace ta da yara 6. Da aka tafi da su, aka je aka ajiye su a can, sun kai watanni suna wajen. Ranar da Allah ya taimake ta ya bata nasarar za ta gudu ta dawo. To su wayannan 'yan ƙanana guda 2, ɗaya ta goya, ɗaya kuma ta ɗauka ta rataya a kafaɗanta. Haka ta haƙura da wayancan saura guda 4, ta ɗauko 2 ta kamo hanya ta dawo.
Aisha's efforts fighting Boko Haram earned her the respect of fellow villagers. They call her the Queen Hunter.
Gaskiya ba zan iya sani ba, don an kubutar da yawa. Na kwanakin nan ko kuma in ce na shekaran jiya mun kubutar da 9.
Later that day, Aisha and her band apprehended 3 Boko Haram fighters. They delivered them to authorities by truck. A commotion of curious villagers parading behind them. Success like this inspires her to continue the work, despite the danger.
Ani dai ina son duniya ta sani. Aikin da muke yi dai mu aiki ne na ceto da nema wa ƙasar mu zaman lafiya. Zaman lafiya nake son wa Najeriya. Ina so in ga Najeriya ta zauna lafiya kamar yadda sauran ƙasashe suke zaune lafiya.
They appear in seemingly endless streams, fleeing terror, bringing with them only what they can carry. Day and night, they've lost their homes, their farms, their livestock, in the worst cases, their children. And for now, they've no hope of returning.
Seize it!
for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Cross Trending. I am Booking November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
In less than 6 months, Nigeria records another jailbreak, this time in Imo State. And the presidency opines that Bishop Kuka's comment on President Buhari's treatment of repentant Boko Haram insurgents is ungodly. Well, this is Plus Politics, and I am Mary Anna Cohn. Barely 6 months after episodes of prison breaks rocked the nation in Edo, Ikoyi, in Lagos, and Ondo states, another happened in Imo State. The Owerri Correctional Center was attacked by suspected hoodlums and hundreds of inmates were freed. The incident happened in the early hours of Easter Monday and was said to have lasted between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. Is there a security problem that transcends that of terrorism and banditry in Nigeria? Well, joining us to have this conversation is Dennis Amakri, a security expert, and Alex Ogbonaya, a broadcast journalist. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Good evening. Here we are.
All right, I'm going to start with you, Alex, because you are joining us from Owerri and you are a journalist. Obviously, you have been following the story as it has continued to develop. So give us a clear picture. Walk us through what exactly transpired in Owerri last night or the early hours of this morning. We have videos, but of course, it's very difficult for us to have a clear picture of what happened.
Yeah, that's because the incident happened very early this morning at about 2:15 a.m. That was when the incident happened. The PRO of the prison facility, James Maduba, told me that the incident happened at about 2:15, and for over 1 hour there was sporadic shooting and bombing in that area. And just a few minutes ago, I was with him on the phone. He said that before the attack happened, they had 1,881 inmates before the attack happened. And after the attack, they counted 42 inmates left. So if you do your math, so if you take away 42 from 1,881, you're looking at over 1,800 inmates ran away or were freed by the hoodlums. One inmate died out of suffocation or due to suffocation. That's the statistics that he gave me just some 10-15 minutes ago before this program started. So before now, he said that this incident, like I said earlier, happened by 2:15 a.m. They were not expecting it. And the hoodlums also went to the nearby Imo State Police Command and also caused some damage. And nothing happened. None of them were caught. But according to the police PPRO, what's the name again? Ikoku Orlando, in their press release, which was made available a short while ago, said that one of the vehicles the hoodlums came with was arrested, if you allow me to use, if I mean to use that word. And so they want to use that vehicle to see if they can in any way catch some of these culprits who perpetrated this attack. 2,000
plus, if not 1,000 plus inmates escaped. Now, I'm made to understand that there are some of these prisoners that refused to run away with the other prisoners who escaped, according to the reports that we're gathering. What will be done? I mean, were you opportune to ask what would be done to these inmates that refused to run away? I'm sorry, Alex, I think we lost you. But let's move on to, let's go to Mr. Makri. Mr. Makri, I'm going to start by asking, these people marched through the city of Owerri at the early hours of the morning, and they were unchallenged. Nobody stopped them. Of course, we know that in this country, there's always one roadblock, police checkpoints at different places. Why exactly were these men able to perpetrate the kind of dastardly acts that they did without any hindrance whatsoever?
Well, it's a really sorry sight. Sorry to hear about this particular thing. From what I gathered, some intelligence was actually transmitted to the police and the government about what is going to happen. And then, of course, it was very apparent they were singing there, right very close to the government house. And nothing happened until they went and struck. And nobody asked for a backup. Because if the police was actually overwhelmed, they were burning down their police station, the police headquarters. They would have called on the military garrison that was very close by, Nobize, which was about maybe 10 to 15 minutes. You know, and this was not done. And these guys had a feel.
It was on the chopping board because, you know, lots of people were against what he did. And we've had series of other kinds of unrests. Why has it become such a security mess of late? Do you have any idea? I mean, you're not the governor of the state, but you're a security person. Because all of these activities that have led up to this today didn't start overnight, did it?
Well, the security situation, if you want to look at it holistically, you'll find out that we had this problem in the northeast, northwest. Many people believe that it will not get to the south or south-south. Right now, we're experiencing a situation in the southeast, and definitely it will move to the south-south. The governor of Abia State has already declared a curfew from 6 p.m. till dawn. So these are the things, these are signs of the times. We have a serious security problem in this country. And then we're having all kinds of warlords that are coming up in different areas and declaring, misbehaving, or should I say, trying to assert themselves. And of course, our police is weary and thinly spread, and they are hitting on the police directly because the police themselves will not be able to stop them. So, like I said, we have something deeper in our plates right now that we need to look at.
I'm going to come back to you because I want to talk about, I mean, there's a lot to unravel from this story that developed early hours of this morning. But I want to go back to Alex if we have Alex. Alex, the same question I asked Mr. Makri, I'm going to put it to you because you have been covering stories in your state. And like I mentioned, there was a bombardment that was blamed on the government, that the government was trying to cause some form of unrest. But then there's two sides to the story where we heard that there was a training camp for so-called IPOB members where these people were trained on commando-style kind of hits. So could we say that maybe this problem that you're facing in your city could be an aftermath or an offshoot of all of the things that have been happening so far?
No.
Oh dear, I think we're having a connection problem. Well, let's go back to you, Mr. Makri. I want to talk about the fact that these people were armed to the teeth, so much that police officers ran away and they took to their heels. And here we are again talking about arms and ammunition, and we're talking about when we're talking about banditry in the Middle Belt, we're talking about banditry in the northeast, we're talking about Boko Haram. Here we are again with these men on the streets of Owerri, armed to the teeth. And I'm not just talking about guns. They had explosives, which they used on the police headquarters. So our police officers are not even as armed as these people. So it takes us back to the issue of proliferation of small arms and the fact that we have a country saturated with arms and ammunition that has not been mopped up in any way. We hear about these mop-up exercises, but really, what are they mopping up?
I don't think there is any mop-up exercise going on because it is done light-heartedly, because if there is a real mop-up, you cannot convince anybody when people are feeling unsafe to bring out their guns and surrender it. You know, so the basic issue there is that if you are serious about mopping up, you can do money exchanging for guns. Those are different types of systems used in mopping up. You can use it for amnesty, just like it was done. I just can tell you this. There are too many guns. The proliferation of guns in Nigeria is just too heavy. And everybody's having it. And of course, we're sleeping like, you know, a vehicle without brakes down the hill. And then, of course, nothing is going on, because this is a terrible indication. And all these things are trials that are going on. They attack a police station, release people from prison, and then, of course, don't be doubt about it. Those people they are releasing from prison are going to be recruited into their group, you know. So these are the dangerous signals that are coming up at this time.
It makes me really wonder. You just said something about, you know, trials. So these people are testing the waters. That's what you mean. I remember very well, vividly, when we talked about the issue of the bandits, and I spoke with you, I spoke with Sheikh Gumi. It seems like these people, these perpetrators of violence, kind of are taking advantage of the weakness of not just our security forces, but the weaknesses of our leadership in the country as it is. But I keep asking the question, Nigeria is not at war. Why do we have so many guns coming into the country? This is a country where you're not allowed to carry a weapon without license. And we know how licenses are given. It's very difficult to get a license for a weapon to even carry. So really, where are we going?
Yeah, those guns you are seeing are unlicensed. None of them have a license for them. And they are due to the proliferation of arms that are coming in from the north, from the west, and from the south into the country. And then, of course, nobody is actually trying to stop it. And you have AK-47s in people's hands. Look at those AK-47s. They are very expensive. At least $500,000 for one. So these particular people you are looking at, how do they buy them? I don't think they bought them. These arms were given to them. And I can go ahead and tell you, politicians gave it to them. Politicians. So we have a lack of governance. People who are more thinking of themselves, they are not patriotic. And then, of course, they are fueling a violent economy that we are running right now. Because I can tell you, there's a lot of money changing hands, you know, and either with non-state actors and even people in government where money is changing hands.
I want to push you further before I go back to Alex. I think we have him on the phone now. I want to push you further because you have gone ahead to say that the politicians allegedly have bought these weapons and armed these people. What exactly do you think they're arming them for? Is somebody trying to plan a war? Is somebody trying to topple a government? Why would politicians be arming people to cause confusion and tension in a country where we really don't need it, especially when we know that we're already divided along the lines of ethnicity and religion. Why would we want to do that?
Elections. Simple. They are arming these boys for elections. Some of these boys were armed during the last elections.
But the elections are 2023.
And then, of course,
we're still in
after
2021.
Say that again.
We're in 2021. Why would anybody be arming people right now to cause mayhem when the elections are in 2023? I mean, I might be a novice about this, but please help me understand it.
Yeah, let me explain to you. Most of these people you see right now were armed during the last elections. And after the elections, the politicians abandoned them. They're not taking care of them anymore. So these boys now resorted to kidnapping, banditry, and all kinds of things that they are doing to get money, because they were giving money during the elections. Now the elections are over, and then of course they need money to survive. They need money to even sponsor their Boko Haram, to fuel their Boko Haram insurgency. And then of course, remember, we've started moving towards 2023. That's another election coming up. So these boys are still available. And I know Nigerian politicians, they have their boys. In fact, Nigerian politics have gone to the level where you don't run for election if you don't have boys, in quotes, you know. And who are these boys? Thugs with guns, carrying AK-47 that were bought for them.
Interesting. Let me come back to you, Alex, because I'm interested in the information that has been put out by the police. Of course, we got some sound bite from you earlier on when you were talking to the prison's PRO. At the time, they had not ascertained the number of people that were either the people that were freed from the prisons, and of course, at the time, we did not know if there were any casualties. But what are they saying, or who are they saying is responsible for this? Because I've heard all kinds of things. Some people have said it's IPOB members going to the prisons to free their people. Some people are saying that they're angry youths. And of course, the papers have said that they're masked, armed men. What are you hearing from the streets and, of course, from security agencies and all of the press briefings that you've listened to?
Let's go with the police PPRO, first PPRO, Frank Mba, in a press release that he sent down to us here. He said that ECN is responsible for the attack, even though some persons on the streets of Owerri would want to disagree, because how did they come about it? How do they know that it is ECN of members?
I'm sorry, what exactly is ECN? Network. For the benefit of those who are watching, what's ECN?
The ECN is Eastern Security Network, the military arm of IPOB. That's Indigenous Peoples of Biafra, the proscribed group, of course. So, but questions on the streets, on the lips of everybody in the world is, how did they come about that assertion? Who told them that it is ECN? But some will say that maybe they're just some aggrieved youths who, you know, don't forget that during the EndSARS protest, police stations were touched in Owerri. And there was an attempt to also attack this facility, but I think they got wind of it and beefed up security. So now they felt that these security guys have relaxed. And so that was when they came and hit them. Nobody knows, but if you go by what the police authorities are saying, I think then is the ECN, the Eastern Security Network.
Again, on Saturday and on Sunday, it was reported that about 7 suya sellers were attacked in Imo State. Again, leading up to what happened in the early hours of this morning, do you think this is a retaliatory attempt on people from the north of this country? Is this a sectional war? What exactly do you think is going on?
Well, I don't think it's a sectional war. I heard that report too, but I think I don't want to connect that attack to this one. Maybe it could just be a one-off thing or just a minor incident that occurred which led to the attack of the suya sellers. I don't believe that they are related.
Well, I mean, I also like to ask, I mean, I've never lived in Imo State. I have visited a couple times, but why do you think it has become so unsafe and insecure over the past few months? What exactly do you think, as a reporter who's been covering these stories, what do you think is the antecedent or the history of this recent state of insecurity?
It baffles me, Marianne, trust me, because I've also asked that question. I've lived in this state for going to about 8-9 years now. We've never had it this rough. It's been very peaceful. Yes, pockets of skirmishes here and there, but not as bad as it is recently or presently. It beats one's imagination. Why has Imo deteriorated to this level? Maybe the hunger in the land, unemployment, youths are angry, and of course, don't forget too.
But that is the case everywhere in Nigeria. There's youth unemployment in Cross River, in Akwa Ibom, in so many states of the country. You don't see the young people breaking into prisons and freeing prisoners. You don't see that kind of unrest. So really, that's an excuse that is weighty enough. And I'm not in any way saying that we should disregard the fact that young people are not duly employed, but I'm saying, is that a good enough excuse for what has just happened?
No, it's not, of course. It's not a good enough excuse. The fact that you're unemployed doesn't mean that you should take up arms and attack police formations and other security facilities. No, not at all. But again, I think that the police have really angered the people. I still see this as an offshoot of the EndSARS thing. They've really angered the people. And so they are taking this war back to them. And unfortunately, the police are not even prepared. Okay, look at now. They've cordoned off everywhere, making it very difficult for you to, a journey of maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, it will take you like 30 minutes or 1 hour. They've cordoned off everywhere, searching vehicles. What are they looking for? They ought to have beefed up security. They ought to have been prepared for this. They're not causing heavy inconveniences on innocent Imolites. These guys are somewhere jubilating and rejoicing, and they're there making things uncomfortable for us. They will do this after another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they will relax. And these guys could hit them again another 2 months or 3 months. And they'll come back to this same. So they really need to put their house in order.
Okay.
It's a shame that these guys took the fight to them, and from all indications, they seem to be winning.
Back to you, Mr. Makri. This is obviously a hit to your constituency. I know that you're not actively in the service anymore, but of course, this is more like a blow to security agencies. And what Alexander is saying is that, you know, the police is not on their toes. They're not 10 steps ahead of these guys. And he's saying that all they're doing is mounting roadblocks and, you know, stop and searches. But this is not what needs to be done to deal with this issue. So I ask you, could this situation have been preempted or have been averted by both the federal and the state government, because this seems to be, you know, an aftermath of something bigger that had happened. So knowing that these security issues are cropping up everywhere in the country, could this have been averted, and how would you have dealt with this? And then going forward, what needs to be done?
Well, I have to divide this into two, because it's very, very important for you to understand the undercurrents of what is going on. Firstly, now, from open source intelligence, you can get what is going on. And of course, it will tell you that there is no love lost between the former governor of Imo State and the present governor of Imo State. Of course, some weeks back, you know what happened. You know, I remember all these guys have their boys, like I said. So these people have their own, you know, beef about each other on how to deal with each other. Secondly, we are now moving into a situation where the elections are coming, and everybody is trying to do one or two things. If you listen to what even Kanu had said, he said that if people that were terrorists could be released, arrested but released and rehabilitated, then why should other people remain in jail? So he must have ordered his boys, go there, open the jail, bring them out. They are free people. And remember, like I said earlier, that is another source of recruitment for them. So these are the undercurrents that are going on. You know, these are the undercurrents. The governor themselves, remember, the president have said that, look, governors, you are the ones on ground. You should start taking care of this issue. It's your business now. You don't wait for the federal government all the time. So the government, the governors on ground are the ones handling this, and they know the kind of problems that they are facing. So it behoves of them to come together and make sure that they solve the problem. Like I would say in Igbo State, you know, Okorocha and Hope should come together now, sit down, and for the sake of the state, try and solve this problem. Because if they keep on fighting and politicizing everything, their state will continue to burn.
Okay.
And that's where we are.
Well, I want to say thank you to you, Mr. Dennis Amakri. He's a security expert. Thank you very much for talking with us. And of course, Alexander Ogbonaya is a broadcast journalist who was joining us live from Owerri. Thank you, gentlemen. We're hoping that some peace would be returned to the state. We'll take a short break. Thank you for joining us on this conversation. We will come back and talk about the presidency and, of course, what they think of Bishop Kuka's most recent criticism of President Buhari. Stay with us. We'll be right back. The Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese, Bishop Matthew Kuka, is in the news again. This time, he said the Buhari regime was taking care and rehabilitating repentant Boko Haram insurgents, but lacked empathy for their victims who were left to mourn their dead ones and paid ransoms to free their relatives. Also, in his Easter message, the overseer of the Citadel Global Community Church, Tunde Bakare, said Nigeria was in a state of emergency, adding that her health was in danger. And in response to Kuka's comments, the presidency had stated that his criticisms were ungodly. Well, joining me to be part of this conversation, we have Mr. Bola Oba. He is a public affairs analyst. And of course, we have Ambrose Igboke, who is also a public affairs analyst. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on this conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to be about today.
All right. Well, let me start with what Pastor Bakare said. He said that Buhari has continued with Jonathan's opaque subsidy regime, and he promised us change, but that change he has not given us. So I'm going to start with you, Ambrose. Opaque, and of course the issue of the subsidy regime. Now, you and I remember, everybody who's watching saw Mr. President, at the time he wasn't the president, we saw so many of them march through the streets of Lagos on this same issue of subsidy. And here we are again today on the same issue. Mr. Bakare obviously has a point, does he?
I remember a group called SNG, Save Nigeria Group. being run by today Pastor Tunde Bakare himself. That group